Have you made a decision as whether or not you want to testify?
Yes, I have.
Do you want to testify?
No.
Megan Boswell got rid of Evelyn so that Megan could do Megan. It's not fair to say she murdered her child because she didn't grieve right. I resent it.
Stop. Can you edit that out?
We are on a verdict watch this morning in Tennessee in the baby Evelyn murder trial. So does the jury believe that Megan Boswell killed her daughter so that Megan can do Megan? All it takes is one holdout, and we're going to take you into the courtroom as soon as there's some movement. Plus, closing arguments today in the assault trial for rapper A$AP Rocky. Two very high-profile legal teams get to go at it one last time over the prop gun. Also this hour, we're spotlighting the case of missing mom Suzanne Simpson. We'll tell you what we know about her accused husband, Brad Simpson, at this point in time. Plus, big questions looming over the Rose Petal murder trial. The defense trying to depict the victim as a part-time prostitute who was producing child porn. A forensic criminologist is telling us what answers can be found in the crime scene. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. We've got a great show planned for you, so let's get it started. Grab your cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. Ding, ding, here comes the fire truck. Bad Mama Boswell's pants are on fire. You know, my friends, I don't know what's more disturbing, how Megan Boswell disposed of her precious baby Evelyn, or how she was publicly portraying herself as a victim. She reminds me of lying, crying Leilani Simon. Both of them lied and cried their way into the hearts of the public. Both of them were extremely selfish, and both of them wanted to be without their babies. Shameless, heartless, and gutless they are. You know, I'm not sure what's taken the jury so long in Megan Boswell's case. The defense team is arguing sudden infant death syndrome, and if that were true, there would be no reason to hide baby Evelyn's death or to lie about baby Evelyn's death. And it wasn't just one lie. No, she put on a show. Megan Boswell put on a phony, rotten show for the world to gain sympathy and create an alibi and portray herself as a victim. I predict Megan Boswell will soon be joining Leilani Simon in prison. And baby Evelyn will be remembered always like baby Quentin. Two precious angels who will always be in our hearts. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it, my friends. Right now, I want to give you your daily docket.
The voicemail from Post said there was an emergency, and as I was going back to my car, he called again, and I again went straight to voicemail, so I called him back, and he said, "It's her. I think she's dead." And so I got there as fast as I could.
In South Carolina, we've got the state's case resuming this morning in the Rose Petal murder trial for Zachary Hughes. Court starts up at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time there. In California, we've got closing arguments expected today in the trial for A$AP Rocky. That's going to start up at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And in Ohio, we've got Rebecca Osborne. She's got a psychiatric hearing at 9 a.m. This lady's accused of killing multiple men after police say she would lure them with sex, then dose them with drugs. We'll follow all those for you now to our top story. Jury deliberations resuming this morning in the baby Evelyn murder trial for Megan Boswell. The jury out for almost 3 hours. Now, before they began deliberations, they got to hear the all-important closings.
Ladies and gentlemen, and I'm asking you today, 5 years later, February 2025, to show Megan Boswell that her stories have caught up with her. The evidence shows the defendant. This person is the only person responsible for her child being dead. You heard it straight from Dr. Malushnik. Evelyn shouldn't be dead. Evelyn should not be dead.
She's not in Megan's shoes. She's not out there living in that single-wide trailer. That's not her life. She's not been raised by drug addict parents, a dad that beats on her mom constantly, and seen that growing up. She's not seen that. She can't put herself in her shoes. It's not fair to say she murdered her child because she didn't grieve right. I resent it. You should too.
All right, let's talk about this. What did you think of the closing arguments and who's going to win this case? I want to bring in our legal eagles now. With me, celebrity attorney John Phillips, and want to welcome in a brand new attorney guest. You all know and love his dad, attorney Chase Brown, Michael J. Brown's son, who's followed in his father's footsteps, served as a prosecutor doing criminal defense work now. And Chase, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show this morning. Welcome. So let's start with the closing arguments. I want to know what you both liked, what you didn't like, what you found effective. Kind of just give us your takes, please. John Phillips, would you start us off?
Look, you had methodical and you had passion. And so those are kind of the hallmarks of a very good closing argument. You know, as Chase will experience during his career, and his dad, did so well with it's, lawyers are storytellers first. And so you've got to tell the story, and you can't just stay in the same voice because you'll lose the jury. And, the defense attorney there was almost full throat. And so, they laid out their cases. Both sides are going to stringently disagree. There were some shots made at attorneys, which you're not supposed to do. But, I think the state's proven its case, but it was great presentations.
John, thank you for that. And just wanted to note something. You see the clock up ticking on your screen? They just went back in the room as you were answering with your analysis, John. So here we go. We're getting close to that 3-hour mark. Chase Brown, you've got to learn from the best. Tell me what you thought of the closing arguments. Were you impressed, unimpressed? What stood out to you?
I definitely was very impressed. There's always a lot of evidence in a murder trial, so it takes a lot of time to go through that. And I do agree. You need to bring in voice inflections and keep the jury engaged throughout the entire time. So the passion from the defense attorney is changing his voice, changing what he's saying in terms of his volume is very effective. So I think it was great. And then always that prosecutor is always going to walk right up to the defendant and point right at her. And that's in every trial. So that was great as well. And she took her time, was very quiet and pointed right at her, which is very effective. So I loved both sides, actually.
And I appreciate your comments very much, Chase. I was a trial team kid in law school, and the vocal variation, like you hit on, is something that they teach you. You can't be quiet the whole time and monotone. You can't be screaming at the jury. You have to have that variety, like you said, which is effective. And then the theatrics, the pointing at the defendant, being unafraid. That really says a lot when you're a prosecutor. Let me play a clip for you both. Here, this is some figurative finger pointing, shall I say, going on at Hunter Wood by the defense. So they were trying to say that this is who may potentially have been responsible. Let's take a look.
His dad said that he was schizophrenic. I asked him, is he schizophrenic and have hallucinations? He agreed with me on that. He also agreed with me when I asked him if he talked about using an aluminum foil or tin foil. And he said, yeah, he talks about some off-the-wall stuff. Ask yourself who's more likely to have wrapped that child in tin foil. The child's mother that has cared for the child, taken care of the child, or the boyfriend who's schizophrenic.
All right, John Phillips, what did you think of the defense theory and attack here in this case, saying that Megan did the disposal of baby Evelyn, embraced those bad facts? Megan lied, Megan wasn't the best mom, but didn't do the homicide. Do you think that was the best approach?
I mean, it was an approach, right? The best approach, probably not, but you take the facts as they come, and you have you know, you look for somebody worse than your bad guy, and here Hunter fit that, and there's some, I think there was lack of a DNA test and, you know, refusal that kind of gave some room for reasonable doubt towards Hunter. But again, with the period this child was missing and where she was found and the fingerprint on the tinfoil by Megan, you know, there's plenty there to otherwise explain. And again, if a baby dies from SIDS, you would expect contemporaneous reporting and freaking out, you know, not, oh, where'd she go? You know, it just, none of it makes sense.
Right, John, you're exactly right. When you hearken upon your common sense, you think, well, and what reason would she have to cover it all up and then try to convince America that she's the victim here? Chase Brown, hearkening back to your time as a prosecutor, when you have the defense really point to a specific theory, as they've done here with sudden infant death syndrome, it makes your job a little harder, doesn't it, when you've got to not only prove the case, but then refute what they've put forward. Do you think that this prosecution team has done enough to put to bed in the jury's mind the idea that baby Evelyn couldn't have died from SIDS?
I definitely think they have. They are disproving, in a way, all of the other suspects that the defense is going to throw at them. The judge is always going to give an instruction that the defense doesn't have to prove anything, but the jury is always going to want some sort of explanation and you know, rule out other people, because they're always going to wonder, well, if she didn't do it, then who did? And the prosecution did a great job of showing that really she is the only one responsible. They showed that all these other people the defense are going to throw out there are not the ones who did it. So they did a good job in ruling out other people, which they don't necessarily have to do, but it's definitely a great strategy, and it was effective.
Chase, thank you for that. So now here we are, we're at the 3-hour mark officially. John Phillips, if you had to predict which way the jury's going to go, what would you say?
Guilty. You know, it's that room. My first job was law clerk for a judge, and I got to be in that room sometimes. You know, I'd take out the trash or get drinks, and I'd get to hear little nuggets. And you never, like, we want to put our common sense in what we think they're doing, and you never quite know what they're doing. You got 6 or 12 random people thrown together, and they've watched this trial, and some were paying attention and some weren't. But again, you know, jurors are good at spotting liars. And even though she didn't testify, she didn't have to testify. You know, they can see from the buildup of her case, despite her attorney's passionate, you know, storytelling, that something happened to Evelyn, and it's ultimately a mom's responsibility to fight for their child. And here, that didn't happen.
Right, sharp points, John. Thank you for that. The jury going through 20 counts. So just as a reminder, they've got a lot to go through on the verdict form. Chase Brown, would you give us your prediction for this case, please?
I tend to agree as guilty also. There's a lot of, I would say, circumstantial evidence, but it always comes back to common sense and what really makes sense here. And I think that a huge part for the case is the fact that there was a lot of lying. The stories kept changing, and you know, Megan couldn't give a straight story, and the jury's really going to take that into account. And they're going to say, if she really didn't do this, she would have just said right away and given one theory, but she keeps changing her story. So it doesn't make sense for her to keep changing her story, and I think the common sense is going to ultimately prevail to that guilty verdict.
I think you're right. Attorneys Chase Brown and John Phillips, so glad we have you both on the program this hour. Stand by for more cues, please. We're going to hit our first break. Go refill that coffee, my friends. Here's what's coming up on Opening Statements.
It is our sincere hope and prayer that Brad will find the compassion and courage to end his family's suffering by cooperating with the authorities to help us find his wife.
And he never cooperated, but he did land himself behind bars. Brad Simpson in court on Wednesday. His wife, Suzanne, still missing. We're talking about what comes next in his case. Plus, closing arguments happening today in the trial for rapper A$AP Rocky. Will Riri be there? And we're going to dive deeper into the alleged prop gun. Will they ever find it? Our experts weigh in.
victim had been brutally stabbed multiple times.
A single mother found dead.
An unsettling crime scene.
With rose petals scattered around her.
The suspect, a classically trained concert pianist.
Now a jury must decide, did this musician
commit murder?
I think there's meaning and significance to everything a killer does.
The Rose Petal Murder Trial. Today, only on Court TV.
At the moment the gun was fired, to your recollection of being there that night, was there anyone between the four of you who was acting like that gun was a fake gun?
Absolutely not.
Today is the day for the closing arguments in the trial of hip-hop star A$AP Rocky, and that is what's trending in true crime. So another big question looming over this case, do we know the answer to it? Was the gun used real or fake? So we're going to talk about all of this. So the state is arguing that Terrell Efron A$AP Relly is the victim of a shooting carried out by A$AP Rocky with a real gun. The defense team says that Rocky did have a gun, albeit a prop gun that would fire blanks, nothing that would injure A$AP Relly. Let's take a look at some of what was played out in the trial as the defense tried to paint A$AP Relly as someone who's just after Rocky's money.
We indicated he's like a brother to you, correct?
Yes.
He gave you your star, correct?
He didn't give me my star, but yes, he is a brother to me.
Well, you indicated he got you out of a bad record label deal, correct?
I never said it was a bad record label deal. I just say he helped me get out my contract.
Was the contract you wanted to get out?
Only because I felt the dough was...
Posted strike, it's non-responsive.
You're not going to keep tripping me up. I'm on
Mr. Efron! Stop! Just stop talking.
Your Honor, we have a letter from the DA, and the letter says that Mr. Efron informed them that he went on his Instagram.
Yes, my Instagram.
All right. Your Instagram, as in Relly Boss?
You're trying to show me somebody else's that I can't activate where I can go to my archive.
He doesn't. All right, stop it. He doesn't need to go on someone else's phone.
All right, so today in closing arguments, so let's assume for the sake of our analysis, it's going to be Attorney Joe Tacopina for the defense and then Deputy District Attorney John Lewin for the state of California. We saw him in that major prosecution of the Jinx. Robert Durst, Deputy DA Lewin and John Tacopina are Joe Tacopina rather, are very seasoned lawyers. They're very good at what they do. So our first question to our power panel, which side do you believe is going to win the closing arguments? Just the closing arguments. Let's talk about that. Let's bring in attorney John Phillips, entertainment commentator Holland Reed, and firearms expert Dr. Jason Piccolo. Good morning to you all. Okay, Dr. Jason, let me go to you. You've also served in law enforcement. You've had a long, illustrious career. You're an author too. But getting right to it, you've looked at these facts from both sides. Who do you think is going to argue the better close?
I think the prosecution team will. I mean, this whole thing with the prop gun, it's got my mind boggled. And that gun is in the wind. It's on the bottom of a river somewhere, if there is actually one. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the prosecution on this one.
The prosecution. Holland Reed, let me go to you next. Who do you think is going to win the closing arguments? I'm not necessarily saying the trial, but just the closes.
I'm going to go with A$AP Rocky's team. Again, like where's the smoking gun? The plaintiff here and the witness, he was incredible. There's so many lies, deleted text messages. He's asking for money. I think the closing arguments are going to go for A$AP Rocky for sure.
Holland, appreciate it. Okay, John Phillips, before we have you break the tie, I've got a clip here. This is with the alleged victim, Terrell Efron. On the stand, A$AP Relly is his stage name, and he's talking about how he collected the spent cartridge casings. Let's watch.
All I know, I went back and found the bullets. I don't know who that is or what time, or I know I came back within an hour. I'm confused on what this is right here.
As you sit here right now, do you have any recollection of how long it took you to find these fired cartridge cases after you went back to the scene?
Probably took me no longer than 2-3 minutes.
Okay, so John Phillips, as you know, the first responders, the police, they didn't see any spent cartridge casings, but Mr. Relly did, and they came from a real gun. Whether it was the gun used in the incident, we don't know. Who do you think's going to win the closings?
I also like the defense team. You know, when you've got great defendants, great lawyers. Look, the thing that we don't know, and I haven't watched every minute of the trial, but like Rocky is charismatic, and you've seen both Rocky and Relly kind of get in it with the judge, and they're both trying to get their stories, you know, across, and not just through their own testimony, but through, you know, the testimony of others. And you know, I know our gun expert can weigh in on the powder residue and how this was more akin to a prop gun or that type of gun than a gun that actually fired a bullet. And you know, without the gun, you can't match the casings. But I like the defense team. I think they've made a good argument throughout, and never bet against Joe Tacopina.
Yeah, no doubt about it. These lawyers are excellent. They are really. I'm just looking forward to watching the closings. I mean, really, they're such good lawyers. Young law students and inexperienced lawyers should watch Tacopina and Lewin and see how they do things. They're both sensational. So let's talk about the gun. So we have one of the most recent defense witnesses presented, as you all know, was Jamel Phillips, ASAP 12E, again in that same collective with Rocky and Relly. He was there for the incident in question. He says it was a starter pistol that was used, a prop gun. Let's take a look.
Would you agree that if it's a prop gun and that Relly knows it's a prop gun, that it's going to have no effect on stopping Relly from doing anything because he already knows it's prop gun?
Correct, because it didn't stop him, yes.
You're telling me that when Relly is running around, that he still knows it's prop gun, correct?
He wasn't running around, he's hitting hitters, so he's not running nowhere.
Okay. But that entire time, you're saying Relly knows it's prop gun?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sure the jurors wanted to see a gun. They wanted to see some evidence. There's no real gun. There's no prop gun. There's no gun being brought into that courtroom. Okay, Dr. Jason Piccolo, our gun expert, do you think that there's ever going to be any weapon located pertaining to this case ever at any point in time?
No, not at all. And I would think if they did have a quote-unquote prop gun or a starter pistol, that they would have pictures of it. They would have a chain of custody somewhere or just a receipt of it wherever he picked it up from whatever film crew he had. But yeah, like I said before, I think that if there ever was a prop gun or even a real gun, it's in the bottom of a river somewhere.
I think you're right, Dr. Jason. Holland Reed, let me go to you for your thoughts on this. And will we ever see a gun of any sort?
No, not at all. We already said that the tour manager is testifying that he gave it back to the co-director of the music video. We can't locate it anywhere. I feel like this is just going to be another Hollywood story that's going to just go off into the sunset because there's no there there. There's just no there there, Julie. And that's the problem here. The witnesses are all over the place. They're agitated on stand. It's very messy and dramatic. We want it to be over with. We were happy to see Rihanna. We're done. Let's close this out and just dismiss the whole case. Hollywood is on ASAP Rocky's side, and I believe the law will be as well.
And Holland, thank you so much for that. That was something I wanted to ask you today because you certainly have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in Hollywood. You know, you're in Hollywood, essentially. You're in the entertainment industry. You're an actress. You're a photographer. You're so talented. Is what you're hearing from people, others is that people think this case shouldn't have been brought?
Absolutely. It should not have been brought. You've got 50 Cent literally going to, Instagram and saying, we know this, Relly is very messy, and Relly has his own set of legal issues regarding money grabs. And so we've got the entertainment industry going, why are we harping on this? We know that the gun was not real. We know that ASAP Rocky is fairly a stand-up guy. He's not been in any trouble up into this incident. So just let it go. He wants to move on. He wants to be a father, and he wants to continue his music career. And I think it's time to let it go.
This is really helpful insight. Holland, thank you for that. John Phillips, this makes me think of something else that I think is really important to discuss. And you know this well from being on the side of celebrities. You represent celebrity clients, and I can think back to when I was an assistant district attorney, and we were always told in my former office, you treat everybody the same. We don't care how famous somebody is. They don't get anything extra special or anything more harsh when it comes to their case. It is all fair. Tell me, do you think that the district attorney's office in Los Angeles would proceed on this case if it weren't a famous defendant?
I don't. You know, this set of facts happens probably, you know, every week, if not more often there. And you don't see all of those charges. But when you have, you know, celebrities and kind of ASAP infighting, I'm dealing with it in Florida with the YNW. Unfortunately, my client was killed. But you do have added pressure to get it right, and you know, these prosecutors do like the spotlight as well. And I wanted to add another point from my prior point. I was in court this week, and a civil attorney, much like most of what I do, asked for a 20-day trial from the judge. And the judge, to your point earlier about the law students and folks watching this wanting to get in the legal profession, said, I've seen murder trials resolved in 5 days, guys. Go watch great attorneys do what they do in criminal trial and learn from that, because brevity is important. And you know, it's true. And so, you know, at the end of the day, they've gotten this thing done, and you know, what it costs taxpayers and all that really doesn't matter in the scheme of things, because you do have to prosecute. You do have to show that celebrities can be held accountable too.
Right. And John Lewin, in all fairness to him, he is a stand-up guy. He is honest. He has integrity. He's proven that for many years. That's why he's a deputy DA. He firmly believes in this case that they have the evidence on their side. So we'll see what the jury believes. Perhaps today we get a verdict. I don't know, but great discussion with you all. Holland and John, I have to say goodbye to you both. Thank you for your time and expertise this morning. We'll see you both soon. And Dr. Jason's coming with us. We want you to do the same, please. When we return, we're being a voice for victims this morning for missing wife and mother Suzanne Simpson. Will investigators ever find her? Plus, we're tackling the big questions in the Rose Petal murder trial against Zachary Hughes. Like, why did whomever was at this crime scene leave the rose petals? We're talking about staging with a criminology expert.
NJ Police Fire EMS. I'm sorry? I think I might have a death. Okay, let me connect you. In my fiance's house, she wouldn't answer my call. There's a very weird smell. I can't get her to come around. Okay, let me. It was all over the floor.
She called me up and told me the things that Brad had done to her physically.
Brad Simpson buys 2 bags of Quikrete cement, a construction bucket with a lid, heavy-duty trash bags, a 30-ounce bottle of Clorox disinfectant, and insect repellent.
This helps us come to terms with the reality that Suzanne is no longer with us.
Time to be a voice for victims. We're continuing to focus on missing wife and mother of 4, Suzanne Simpson, 51 years old, vanished on October 6th and hasn't been seen since. Authorities believe that she's dead, and they believe that her husband, Brad, murdered her. He was in court briefly on Wednesday, looking worse for the wear in his Bexar County jail-issued clothing. The judge went through the hearing pretty quickly. The parties need some more time for discovery. The judge making it clear this case is going to move forward quickly.
So with that in mind, in light of the fact that you're getting this discovery right now, there's no sense in coming back in 30 days. Let's do you all want 60 days or 90 days?
I'm fine to come back in 30, Judge.
Okay, well, we'll leave it up to you. So we'll reset it for 30 days just to make sure that things are moving along. Okay? Thank you, Judge.
So here's what we know about the investigation so far, my friends. Documents are claiming that Brad Simpson went to Home Depot, where he purchased cement, heavy-duty trash bags, Clorox disinfectant spray, and insect repellent. And then, get this, he went to pick up his daughter from elementary school a couple hours later. Authorities say Simpson had a tarp in his truck, and they found a ground-level burn site with a burnt laptop in there, a cell phone, all of this on Simpson's property. But one thing we still don't know is where Suzanne Simpson is. Will she ever be found? We know that there was some DNA found on a saw belonging to Suzanne. And these prosecutors just might have to move forward with a no-body case, calling people like one of the Simpson kids as a witness. So let's talk about this. I'm going to bring in our guest, still with me, firearms expert. He's also a former special agent and supervisor with the Department of Homeland Security, Dr. Jason Piccolo, and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Chase Brown. Let's start with the investigation and looking for the body. Dr. Jason, is there any point where investigators say, we've done everything we can, we're just going to stop looking, or do they continue to look and look indefinitely?
You know, a solid investigative team, one that is really vested into this case, will continue and follow up on every lead, even if it does take years to find the body. This will always be in the back of their head, like, where is that body? How can we find it? And it's not just for them, it's for closure for the family and also to the bolster of this prosecution as well.
I appreciate that. I have a clip from Bart Simpson. This is Brad Simpson's brother, speaking out to the media. This is right after Suzanne disappeared. Take a listen.
This helps us come to terms with the reality that Suzanne is no longer with us, allowing us to continue the difficult process of grieving and focus on rebuilding our lives for the sake of the children and our extended family.
And he was pleading for Brad Simpson to help, as you both know, pleading for him to please help us find Suzanne. He was the last person with Suzanne when he was fighting with her outside of their house and grabbing her, assaulting her, trying to pull her back in the home. A neighbor witnessed it. Chase Brown, tell me, what can prosecutors do with the fact that this guy didn't cooperate? He did nothing when his wife was missing and the searching has been going on.
It's unfortunate, and there's really not much they can do with regards to Mr. Simpson. I mean, that's our system, and you have the absolute right to remain silent. So there's really not much they can do with regards to Mr. Simpson. But just going back in terms of the investigation, what prosecutors can do is direct law enforcement to continue this investigation, because at a certain point this will be in court, in a court of law, and a jury. There's nothing more a jury hates than police officers who don't do their job and keep pursuing stuff. So they want to be able to put these law enforcement on the stand, and they can say where it's ongoing, it's continuing, we're doing everything we can and then some. So I think from a prosecution standpoint, you need to stay on top of law enforcement and make sure that they keep doing everything they can, not leaving any rock unturned.
Right, Chase. You know, one of the other things that they've got going on is kind of a parallel, what should I say, alleged crime with this case. They say that Brad Simpson has an AK-47 that he gave to his longtime business partner to hide because he, perhaps maybe thought his house was going to get searched, and now this business partner got in trouble for hiding this gun. There it is. Dr. Jason, how do you think this portion of the investigation gets resolved?
Now, from what I understand about that firearm, it's a fully automatic firearm, and he had his partner, or alleged co-conspirator now, hide that. So if you have a fully automatic weapon, it needs to be registered with the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And if you do not, that could be a federal violation, as well as there could be state crimes involved with it. So I'd imagine a prosecution is like saying, hey, you know what? We have this evidence. We can keep him locked up. We could, put him on bond or bail later on if the prosecution towards a murder doesn't go forward, but they have something. And with that fully automatic weapon, yes, there is possibility of criminal felony charges.
Yeah, it's like some extra insurance here. If they can't get him on this homicide case, they've got something else in the federal system for him. I want to talk to you, Chase, about one of the potential witnesses. This makes me so sad. I'm sure it does you too. One of the kids, one of the Simpson kids, apparently witnessed dad being violent with mom the night that she disappeared. Do you think prosecutors will have to call the child?
It's unfortunate, but I would say yes. You know, they have to establish a timeline of where Ms. Simpson was last seen, and that goes directly to Mr. Simpson ultimately being the murderer here. With terms of the domestic violence, I'm sure that this child has seen violence in the home, because domestic violence is not something that happens one time. It's an ongoing cycle, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's significant violence that's been going on prior, that the prosecution will ultimately, make an application to introduce that, just to have a narrative, to have us tell a story of how this ended up where it did in this terrible, terrible way.
Right, Chase. Boy, thank you for that. You are sharp, my friend. You know, the prior bad acts that can sometimes come in, if they can show motive, intent, absence of mistake, opportunity, all of these things. If his MO, was beating her in a certain way, or all of that, certain instance, they can possibly make out a case to have the judge let it in, as you've said. So we will see if that comes out in great discussion with you both for the meantime. I have to say goodbye and a big thank you to Attorney Chase Brown. First time on the show. We loved having you. We'll have to get you and your dad on together sometime. Tell him we'll do that. But thanks for filling in for him today. It was great to see you. And Dr. Jason, you're going to stand by, please. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we're going to be turning to the Rose Petal murder case. But first, as we end this segment, we want to remember the victim, because there's a lot of talk about Brad Simpson, but we want to talk about Suzanne, because she's really what this case is about. She was a beautiful mother of 4 children, 51 years old, and had a successful real estate career. She was someone who did it all: a loving mother, a loving friend, and a great work colleague. She is missed, and she hasn't been forgotten. We'll be right back.
It was the biggest story in the world.
People saw the facts differently.
Somebody manufactured evidence in this case.
This was kind of a crazy spectacle.
This case is a circus.
He was an icon. They are in for the fight of their lives. Everybody thinks you're guilty.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? Premieres Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now to South Carolina in the murder trial of Zachary Hughes. He's accused of murdering his best friend's ex-wife, Christina Parcell, in 2021. Prosecutors contending that Hughes, who's a well-known concert pianist, violently stabbed Parcell 31 times because she and her ex's best friend were in the middle of an ugly custody fight over their daughter, and Hughes allegedly decided to take things into his own hands. That's the contention from the state. Now, the guardian ad litem for the victim's daughter gave the court a little taste of the outrageous and very aggressive custody battle that was going on between Parcell and her ex.
Over the course of your role as guardian ad litem, approximately how many emails did you exchange with Mr. Mello?
I don't even know if I could count them. I know when we printed them for the family court trial, I think it was 3 or 4 reams of paper. He was continuing to communicate, harass, threaten, intimidate, bully. His communications were unlike anything I've ever encountered as a guardian, and so they continued to escalate. He said awful things, that we were trafficking children, Ukrainian children through Spartanburg. That's like on the internet. It was Facebook and Reddit, and at one point he had said I was manufacturing child pornography in my law office and put my address and my phone number right there. So he was definitely fired up.
Jury didn't hear this testimony. It was only for the judge, but this was a lot. So let's talk about some of the biggest questions in this case. The scene that appears to maybe have been staged, those rose petals, what in the world? Let's bring in someone who's an expert on staging, forensic criminologist, Dr. Laura Petler. Dr. Laura, we missed you. Welcome back.
Thank you. I missed you guys too. It's great to be back.
Oh, thanks so much. Okay, so what do you make of the rose petals? Could we start there?
So, Julie, I always answer the question the same way every time. When we see something like this in a crime scene, the first answer to every question is, why are there rose petals around the body of the victim? And the answer is simply because it meets the needs of the offender. So the second level question that we always have to ask is, what are the needs of the offender? In this case, is it because we are trying to stage the scene to look like something else? Or is it because the offender is remorseful or thinks that she's beautiful and wants to make the scene look beautiful? And, it's like this very pathological cross between violence and sexuality and her feminism. So, there's a lot of different things that would have to be examined from the suspectology side and the victimology side. Are they significant to her? Did she love roses? That, there's so many different things to weigh before we would render an opinion for why the rose petals meet the needs of the offender.
This is fascinating. Dr. Laura, looking at the facts, do you have any opinions on whether this was someone that was known to Christina Parcell or a stranger?
Yes. In most murders in the United States, if we have, 16,000 murders in the United States, the majority of them, like 90%, are by someone they know. And then of those victims, the female victims in our country are most often killed by someone that they know. And then, Julie, when you take into consideration the element of staging potentially being part of this crime, the staging element is a function of the victim-offender relationship. So if there's no relationship between the victim and the offender, there's no staging. So the fact that there could be staging involved in this particular case is indicative of the fact that there could be a relationship between the victim and the offender.
Wow. Dr. Laura, tell me, we know some bad facts have been coming out about Christina Parcell, not in front of the jury, but just in this court of law and in the court of public opinion, the allegation that she may have been producing child porn. Tell me, is there anything in this crime scene that signifies something about that to you, or anything about vindictiveness or a vengeance, perhaps because of what she may have been doing?
I haven't seen a lot yet about the position of the body, and that would actually tell me a lot, Julie, about how the offender felt about her. So, if the body is face down, that is a particular type of offender, meaning that they're more anger-based. And because we have 31 stab wounds here, I would need to know the depth of the stab wounds. Are they clustered around her body, or are they in a sporadic manner? Are they all going the same direction? Are they all to the chest and the head and the neck? So some of those kinds of things are very important to me when I'm looking at vindictiveness or anger or revenge. And of course, anger is the #1 emotion reported by killers who are interviewed prior or after their murders.
Wow. Dr. Laura, we want to hear more from you, please. After we get into more of the evidence about Christina's body, let's have you back, and we'll do an extended segment, kind of picking up where we're leaving off this morning, and see what else you can glean from the body positioning. Always a pleasure to have you, and congratulations. You are now the Deputy Coroner Commander of the Lancaster County Coroner's Office's Mounted Response Unit. That is so awesome. I just wanted to say congrats on that. Dr. Laura, take good care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Julie.
And thank you for being with us for opening statements. The show is over, but you can watch it again. Please do tell your friends about it. Go to courttv.com, click on that shows tab.